The Judgment. The Nexari Dominion's Grand Council chamber hung suspended in space, a colossal ring of crystalline architecture that reflected the light of 3 nearby suns. Within its halls, the fate of humanity would be decided not by justice, but by fear. High Arbiters Exile, their elongated body draped in ceremonial medals that chimed with each movement, regarded the human representative with 6 golden eyes. Ambassador Sarah Chen stood alone on the judgment platform, her plain black uniform a stark contrast to the ornate chamber. She had refused to kneel, despite tradition demanding it. Your species, Zextal's voice resonated through the chamber, has become an unprecedented concern. In mere centuries, you have expanded across 57 star systems. You have reverse-engineered technologies that took other races millennia to develop. You have refused integration into the Dominion's hierarchy. And now, you dare to establish colonies in the restricted zones. Chen's voice carried clearly across the chamber. The zones you marked as restricted were uninhabited. We found no evidence of current claims. Our people needed room to grow, and we took care not to disturb any existing civilizations. A ripple of bioluminescent anger pulsed through the assembled Nexari counselors. They had never encountered a species that spoke to them as equals. Humanity's refusal to accept their place in the galactic order had been a growing source of concern for decades. Perhaps, Zextal continued, we should remind the Council of the Proxima incident. 3 Nexari warships, among our most advanced, disabled by a handful of human vessels using primitive kinetic weapons and what they call nuclear mines. The crews were rescued, but the shame remains. Chen's jaw tightened. The Proxima incident had been self-defense. The Nexari ships had attempted to force a human colony to relocate, but she knew arguing would only make things worse. The Dominion had already decided humanity's fate. This was merely theater. The Council has deliberated, Zextal announced. We acknowledge humanity's potential for both growth and destruction. You are too dangerous to eliminate. Your dead man switches and scattered colonies ensure that. You are too proud to subjugate. Therefore, we have found an alternative. The chamber's holographic display activated, showing a world that seemed to be perpetually burning. Its atmosphere swirled with storms that crackled with constant lightning. Its surface a maze of jagged mountains and boiling seas. Tartarus 7, Zextal named it. A death world by any species definition. Gravity 1.3 times Earth standard. Atmosphere technically breathable, but laden with metallic particles that make every breath a struggle. Surface temperatures fluctuate between extremes that would kill most species. Its indigenous life forms are equally lethal. Chen felt her blood run cold as she realized what was coming. Humanity will be relocated to Tartarus 7. All of it. You have 6 standard months to gather your people and submit to transport. Any human found outside the Tartarus system, after that time, will be terminated without warning. Your ships will be dismantled. Your colonies evacuated. Your achievements erased. You can't possibly move 11 billion people. Chen protested. The logistics alone. We have already begun construction of the mass transport ships, Zextal interrupted. The Dominion has relocated entire species before. Whether all humans survive the journey and relocation is not our concern. This is mercy, Ambassador. The alternate proposal was extinction. Chen's hands curled into fists. And if we refuse? The chamber's temperature dropped several degrees as Zextal rose to their full height. Then we will demonstrate why the Nexari Dominion has ruled this galaxy for 50,000 years. Choose, Ambassador, Tartarus 7, or extinction. In the following weeks, humanity faced its greatest challenge. The choice between death and exile wasn't really a choice at all. Nations and colonies that had been rivals for centuries now worked together, coordinating the largest migration in human history. The Nexari's massive transport ships appeared in orbit around every human world. Dark, whale-like vessels that could carry millions. Some humans tried to hide, to escape to the furthest reaches of space. Others attempted to fight, launching desperate attacks against Nexari facilities. But the Dominion's power was absolute. Their technology could track human biosignatures across light years. Their weapons could reduce planets to ash. As the last transport ship entered orbit around Tartarus 7, Chen stood at its viewport, watching the nightmare world grow larger. Behind her, thousands of colonists waited in suspension pods. This ship carried the last group of humans, scientists, soldiers, and engineers specifically chosen for their skills. "They think they're sentencing us to death," she whispered, pressing her hand against the cold viewport. But they've forgotten something important about humans. The ship's AI chirped inquisitively. "We grew strong on a death world called Earth." Chen smiled grimly. "Everything that made us dangerous, our adaptability, our determination, our willingness to fight impossible odds, came from surviving there. They're not exile us to die." Lightning flashed across Tartarus 7's atmosphere, illuminating the jagged mountains and burning plains below. "They're sending us home." First contact with hell. The descent to Tartarus 7's surface was worse than any combat drop in human history. Transport ships, never designed for atmospheric entry on a death world, screamed through layers of metallic storms. Lightning struck their hulls repeatedly, systems failing across the board. More than a few ships were lost, their remains scattered across the burning plains below. The valley where they made their landing was chosen for its relative stability. A stretch of black rock nestled between mountains that glowed with internal heat. As the transport doors opened, the first wave of colonists got their first taste of their new home. The air hit them like a physical force, thick with metallic particles that made their lungs burn. The gravity pulled at their bodies, making every movement a conscious effort. Dr. Maya Rodriguez, the lead environmental scientist, took her first readings and swore under her breath. "The atmosphere is technically breathable, but these metallic particles, they're going to shred our lungs over time. We need to develop filtration systems immediately." Colonel James Walker, who'd commanded Earth's last stand against the Nexari, was already organizing defense teams. The initial scans showed movement in the distance, large movement. "We've got company coming. Whatever lives here, it's noticed us." They had barely begun unloading essential supplies when they heard it, a sound that seemed to shake the ground itself. From behind one of the glowing mountains emerged a creature that defied explanation. It moved like a centipede but was the size of a small ship, its segmented body covered in what looked like natural armor plating. Each segment glowed with internal heat, and its multiple legs left molten footprints in the rock. "Scatter." Walker's command crackled through their comm systems. "Defense teams, positioning. Everyone else, get to the ships." But retreat wasn't an option. The creature was between them and most of the ships. They had to stand their ground. The first shots from their energy weapons, the few they'd managed to hide from the Nexari, seemed to bounce off the creature's armor. Conventional bullets fared no better. The beast charged forward, its speed impossible for something its size. Then Maya noticed something. The legs. She shouted into the comm. "The joints between segments. They're cooling to move. Target the joints." The defense teams adjusted their aim. Concentrated fire on the creature's joints caused its internal heat to spike unevenly. It stumbled, its own massive weight working against it. As it crashed to the ground, the impact shook the valley. But there was no time to celebrate. More movement appeared on the sensors. Different signatures this time, coming from multiple directions. "We need shelter," Walker commanded. Now. Engineers who had been waiting for this moment sprang into action. They had spent the 6-month journey designing structures that could withstand Tartarus 7's environment. Prefabricated panels of advanced materials were quickly assembled into dome-like structures, their surfaces designed to deflect both the intense heat and the constant electrical storms. The next 48 hours were a blur of constant work and combat. More creatures emerged from the mountains and plains, some like the heat centipede, others even more alien. Each required different tactics to fight off. Each taught them something new about surviving on this world. Maya's team worked frantically to process data about their environment. The metallic particles in the air weren't random. They formed patterns, almost like a planet-wide circulatory system. The constant storms seemed to follow these patterns. Understanding them would be key to survival. By the end of the first week, they had established what they called Haven 1, a fortified base built into the valley wall. The prefab structures were holding, but they needed something more permanent. The remaining ships had been stripped for materials, their parts repurposed for everything from air filtration to defensive weapons. In her lab, Maya studied samples taken from the fallen creatures. These life forms, she reported to Walker, they're not just surviving here. They're thriving. Their biology is incredible. Internal heat regulation systems, natural electrical conductors, metallic compounds in their cellular structure. They evolved to turn this hell into paradise. Walker stared at the samples. Can we learn from them? Adapt? We'll have to, Maya replied. The filtration systems we brought won't last forever. The protective gear will break down. If we want to survive long-term, we need to understand how life here works and evolve. Outside Haven 1's walls, another storm was brewing. The sensors showed massive shapes moving in the distance, and the metallic particles in the air were forming new patterns they hadn't seen before. This world was testing them, pushing them to adapt or die. But in the command center, Ambassador Chen watched the humans at work with pride. Already they were adapting, learning, growing stronger. The Nexeri had chosen this world because nothing could survive here. They didn't understand that humans had always survived by doing the impossible. Send teams to the other landing sites, she ordered. We need to connect with every survivor, pool our resources, share what we've learned. The Nexeri think they've sentenced us to death, but they've given us something else entirely. What's that? Walker asked. Ken's eyes gleamed with determination. A chance to become something new, something stronger. And when we're done evolving, when we've mastered this world that was meant to kill us, we'll show them exactly what humanity can become. In the distance, thunder rolled across the burning plains of Tartarus 7, and humanity prepared for another day in hell. They had no choice but to survive, no choice but to adapt, no choice but to conquer. And deep beneath the surface of their prison world, ancient machinery stirred, sensing new life above. The humans weren't the first to be exiled here, but perhaps they would be the first to discover why this world was chosen as a prison in the first place. Evolution of survival. 3 months into their exile on Tartarus 7, humanity had learned one crucial truth: adapt or die. Haven 1 had grown into a sprawling complex of interconnected domes and tunnels, each new addition incorporating lessons learned from bitter experience. But it was what they discovered below ground that changed everything. Dr. Maya Rodriguez stood in a newly excavated chamber, her filtered breath echoing off walls that seemed to pulse with a faint internal light. The chamber hadn't been carved by natural forces. Its geometric patterns and perfectly smooth surfaces spoke of artificial construction. But it wasn't human, and it certainly wasn't Nexeri. This architecture, she spoke into her recorder, appears to predate any known civilization in the galaxy. The material composition is unlike anything we've encountered. It seems to be alive, in a way, responding to our presence. Behind her, Colonel Walker ran his hand along one of the walls, watching as it shimmed with bioluminescence at his touch. The question is, who built it? And why did they abandon it? Their questions were interrupted by a distant rumble, different from the constant storms above. The ground itself seemed to tremble, and the wall's luminescence intensified. All teams, report. Walker barked into his comm. Sir, a voice crackled back, we're picking up massive seismic activity across the entire region. It's like the planet is waking up. In Haven 1's command center, Ambassador Chen watched as new data poured in from their sensor network. The metallic particles in the atmosphere were forming new patterns, more complex than anything they'd seen before. The storms were intensifying, but not randomly. They seemed to be following specific paths, like circuits in a global machine. It's responding to us, Maya realized, studying the data. Everything we've seen, the metallic atmosphere, the creatures with their internal heat, these ruins, they're all part of something bigger. This isn't just a planet. It's an engineered system. The discovery changed everything. Teams of scientists and engineers worked around the clock, studying the ancient technology they'd found. The ruins weren't just in their valley. Reports came in from other human settlements across Tartarus 7, each finding similar structures buried beneath the surface. But understanding came at a price. The more they explored, the more the planet seemed to react. New creatures emerged from the depths. Unlike anything they'd seen before, these weren't just animals. They were biological machines, defenders programmed to protect something. In her lab, Maya made another breakthrough. She had been studying the metallic particles in the air, trying to understand how the native life forms used them. Under a quantum microscope, she saw something impossible. The particles weren't just metal. They were microscopic machines. They're not just in the air, she explained to Chen and Walker. They're in everything. The soil, the creatures, even starting to show up in our own tissue samples. They're changing us, just like they changed everything else on this world. Changed us how? Chen demanded. Maya projected a series of cellular scans. Our bodies are adapting. The particles are integrating with our cellular structure, making us more resistant to the environment. It's like the planet is trying to rebuild us. Walker frowned. Is it dangerous? Everything here is dangerous, Maya replied. But this might be our salvation. If we can understand it, control it, we might not just survive here. We might become something new entirely. Their discussion was interrupted by an alert from the defense systems. Something massive was approaching Haven 1, larger than anything they'd encountered before. On the screens, they watched as a creature emerged from the burning plains. It moved like liquid metal, its body constantly shifting and reforming, and it was headed straight for them. But this time, they were ready. The defense teams had adapted their weapons, incorporating the metallic particles into their ammunition. The creatures might be powerful, but humanity had learned their weaknesses, learned to fight smart instead of strong. As they prepared for battle, Chen received reports from other settlements. Similar creatures were appearing everywhere, all moving with purpose. Something had triggered them, and humanity was caught in the middle of an ancient system they barely understood. Listen, Maya said suddenly, her eyes wide. She had been monitoring the atmospheric frequencies, trying to decode the patterns in the metallic particles. They're not just random signals. It's code. The whole planet. It's trying to tell us something. The creature was getting closer, but Chen made a decision that would change everything. Instead of attacking, she ordered the defenses to stand down. If the planet was trying to communicate, maybe it was time they listened. As the metal giant approached Haven 1's walls, the ancient ruins beneath them hummed to life. Patterns of light spread across the ground like circuits waking from a long sleep, and in the command center's screens, the atmospheric code began to resolve into something they could understand. They weren't just exiles on a Deathworld anymore. They were becoming part of something far older and more powerful than either humanity or the Nexeri had imagined. Tartarus 7 wasn't just a prison. It was a forge designed to transform those who survived it into something new. And humanity, it seemed, was passing the test. The rising storm. 6 months into their exile, humanity had become something the Nexeri could never have anticipated. The metallic particles that once threatened to shred their lungs now flowed through their bodies like a second circulatory system. Their skin had developed a subtle sheen, almost metallic in certain lights, and their eyes could pierce the constant storms of Tartarus 7 with perfect clarity. But the changes went far deeper than mere physical adaptation. Maya stood in Haven 1's central chamber, now transformed by the integration of the ancient technology they'd discovered. The walls pulsed with living light, responding to the thoughts of the humans around them. She could feel the planet's rhythms now, its vast networks of energy and information flowing through the metallic atmosphere. The builders, she addressed the assembled council, didn't create Tartarus 7 as a prison. They created it as a crucible. The holographic displays showed the full scope of their discoveries. The planet was a vast machine, designed to transform those who could survive its challenges. The metallic particles weren't a natural phenomenon. They were programmable matter, tools left behind by a civilization so advanced they could reshape reality at the molecular level. They're gone now, Maya continued, but they left this world as a test. The creatures we fought, the storms, the very atmosphere, all of it was designed to either destroy the unworthy or transform the capable into something new. Colonel Walker, his own eyes now bearing the metallic sheen of adaptation, stepped forward. And the Nexari? Did they know what they were sending us to? No. Ambassador Chen answered. They've never tried to survive here themselves. They just saw a death world and assumed nothing could live here. They didn't understand that surviving here meant becoming something more. Their discussion was interrupted by a planetary alert. The storm patterns had changed, forming new configurations they'd never seen before. Beneath their feet, the ancient machinery thrummed with increasing power. Something's coming, Maya whispered, feeling the change through her enhanced senses. Something big. The surface of Tartarus 7 began to shift. Across the planet, massive structures that had laid dormant for millennia began to rise from the burning plains. They weren't ruins. They were ships, weapons, tools of a civilization that had mastered the art of transforming matter itself. In Haven 1's command center, the ancient interfaces they'd discovered sparked to life. Information flooded their systems, downloaded directly into their enhanced minds. The Builder's legacy was awakening, and humanity had proven worthy to receive it. But they weren't the only ones who noticed. High above Tartarus 7, Nexari sensor stations detected the massive energy signatures. The planet they'd chosen as a prison was revealing its true nature, and the ruling species of the galaxy watched with growing horror as they realized what they'd done. They hadn't sentenced humanity to death. They'd given them the keys to power beyond imagination. Chen stood at the heart of Haven 1, watching as more of the ancient city rose from beneath the surface. Through their enhanced bodies and minds, they could now understand the true purpose of Tartarus 7. The metallic storms, the deadly creatures, the harsh environment, all of it was designed to force evolution, to push any species trapped here to either transcend their limitations or perish. The Builders left this place as a gift, Maya explained, reading the ancient data now flowing through their collective consciousness. They believed that true civilization could only emerge through overcoming impossible challenges. They seeded galaxies with worlds like this, waiting for species worthy of their legacy. Walker's enhanced vision caught movement in orbit. The Nexari are coming. Their ships are entering the system. But Chen smiled, feeling the power of Tartarus 7 flowing through her transformed body. Let them come. They thought they were gods, ruling this galaxy with their advanced technology. But they never understood what true advancement means. The planet's defense systems, dormant for eons, began to power up. The metallic storms coalesced into shapes that defied physics, ready to protect humanity, not as prisoners, but as inheritors. Send a message to the Nexari fleet, Chen commanded. Tell them that humanity accepts their sentence to Tartarus 7. We accept it as our home, our fortress, and our birthright. And if they wish to maintain their empire, they will acknowledge us not as exiles, but as equals. Above them, the storms of Tartarus 7 raged with new purpose, and humanity prepared to show the galaxy what they had become. They were no longer just survivors. They were the children of a death world, transformed by its trials into something that even the Builders would have been proud to call their successors. The real question now wasn't whether humanity would survive. It was whether the galaxy was ready for what humanity had become. Defiance. The Nexari fleet arrived in force, over 300 warships, each carrying enough firepower to reduce a planet's surface to ash. They hung in Tartarus VII's orbit like a constellation of death, their crystalline hulls reflecting the lightning storms below. But they didn't fire. They couldn't. The planet's defenses had awoken fully now, and the metallic storms had transformed into a shield that their sensors couldn't even comprehend. In Haven 1's command center, now a gleaming fusion of human innovation and builder technology, Ambassador Chen faced the holographic projection of High Arbiter's Exile. The Nexari leader's 6 eyes widened at the sight of her transformed appearance. "What have you become?" Zextol's voice carried a tremor of fear. Chen's metallic flecked eyes met the Arbiter's gaze. "We've become what we were always meant to be. Your perfect prison turned out to be the greatest gift you could have given us." Through their enhanced consciousness, humanity could now access the full archives of the Builders. They learned that Tartarus VII wasn't unique. It was one of many such worlds, scattered across the galaxy. The Builders had created them as tests, waiting for species worthy of their legacy. The Builders didn't disappear, Maya explained, stepping into view. They transcended, and they left behind these worlds to find others who could follow their path. The Nexari fleet's weapons powered up, but Walker just smiled. Through their connection to the planet's systems, they could feel the ancient defenses stirring. The metallic storms above began to take shape, forming constructs that made the Nexari ships look primitive in comparison. "You have 2 choices," Chen addressed Zextol. "You can try to destroy us and learn exactly what this world's defenses are capable of, or you can accept that the galaxy is changing. The age of Nexari dominion is over. It's time for something new." Zextol's bioluminescence pulsed with anger. "You dare threaten the species that has ruled this galaxy for 50,000 years. "We're not threatening you," Chen replied. "We're offering you a chance to evolve with us. The Builders didn't create these worlds for conquest. They created them for transformation. Every species has the potential to become something more, even the Nexari." As if responding to her words, the ancient machinery beneath Tartarus VII's surface pulsed with energy. Across the planet, more builder structures emerged, not as weapons, but as beacons. The metallic particles in the atmosphere carried their signal across space, an invitation to all species ready to transcend their current forms. "Your empire is built on stagnation," Chen continued. "You suppress any species that might challenge you. But the Builders knew that true civilization can only emerge through challenge, through transformation. That's what Tartarus VII taught us." The Nexari fleet held position, weapons ready but unfired. Through their enhanced senses, humanity could feel the uncertainty radiating from the alien ships. Everything they had believed about their superiority was being challenged. "The choice is yours," Chen concluded. "Continue your empire of stagnation, avoiding these crucible worlds out of fear, or join us in becoming something more than we are now." For a long moment, silence filled the void between worlds. Then, slowly, the Nexari weapons powered down. "What are you proposing?" Zextol asked. "A new age," Chen replied. "One where species grow through cooperation instead of dominion. The Builders left us their knowledge, their technology, and their vision. They believed that true civilization could only emerge when different species worked together to transcend their limitations." The metallic storms of Tartarus VII calmed, forming patterns of light that stretched into space, a bridge between the old and the new. Humanity had not just survived their exile. They had fulfilled the Builders' ancient purpose. They had become living proof that evolution came not through conquest, but through overcoming impossible challenges. "Welcome," Chen said, extending her hand to the stars, "to the next stage of galactic evolution." Above Tartarus VII, the Nexari fleet began to descend, not as conquerors, but as students. The Deathworld that was meant to be humanity's prison had become the birthplace of a new era, and as the ancient machines hummed with power, humanity prepared to guide the galaxy toward a future that even the Builders could not have imagined. They had been sentenced to hell, but they had turned it into a forge for the future. And now, at last, the real work could begin. The end.